The colony sky was dark with heavy clouds, and cold winds rushed between the broken metal houses. Inside one of those houses, a human man named Daniel sat at his small table, holding a paper in his hands. It was an eviction notice, bold letters across the top. Rent not paid, leave within 3 days. His hands shook as he read it again. He had no credits left, no work, and nothing to sell. For a long moment, silence filled the room, only the sound of cold wind whistling through the cracks of the wall. In the corner of the small room, an alien girl quietly folded clothes. Her hands were fast, smooth, almost like she had done this all her life. Her skin was pale with a strange blue glow under the lamp, and her long silver hair fell forward as she bent over the laundry basket. She looked fragile, almost weak, but her eyes were bright, watching Daniel carefully. He sighed and rubbed his forehead. "They will throw me out." "And you too," he whispered. The girl kept folding shirts, pressing each one perfectly flat. And then she smiled. It was not a nervous smile, not a forced one, but calm, like she had already decided something. "I can help you," she said softly, her voice carrying a strange accent. "I'll do what a man loves most, and I'll fold your laundry." Daniel stared at her, confused, a short laugh escaping him. "Laundry? You think that will pay the rent?" "They don't take clean shirts as money," he said, shaking his head, but the girl's smile stayed, her fingers never stopping as she folded another shirt, another pair of trousers. "You will understand," she said, her eyes lifting to meet his. "Please don't let them take me away." Before Daniel could answer, heavy knocking shook the metal door. His heart jumped and the girl froze, her hands gripping the shirt too tightly. The knock came again, louder this time, and a voice shouted from outside, "Daniel! Open up! You're behind on rent again!" Daniel stood slowly, his throat dry. He opened the door just a little, enough to see 2 guards standing outside in dark coats. Their faces were hard, eyes cold, holding electric batons in their hands. One of them leaned closer. "You've got 3 days. If you don't pay, we'll throw you and your alien pet out in the snow." Daniel clenched his fists, anger burning inside him. "She's not a pet," he muttered, his voice low but steady. The guard smirked. "Call her what you want. Doesn't change the rules. 3 days. With that, they turned and walked away, their boots crunching in the snow. Daniel shut the door slowly and leaned against it, his heart still pounding. He turned back to the girl, who was now standing, holding the folded clothes in her arms like a shield. Her eyes were wide but calm. No tears, no panic, only quiet strength. "And see," she whispered, "you must not let them take me. I can make myself useful. I will fold your clothes, clean your home, cook your meals, whatever you need." Daniel shook his head, walking back to the table. "You don't understand," he said, his voice heavy with defeat. "They don't care if you clean. They want credits. And I have none." The girl placed the folded shirts carefully on the chair and stepped closer. "I was taken once," she said softly. "They chained me. They made me clean for them. Always cleaning, always folding, never free." Her voice trembled, but she lifted her chin. "Here, I choose. Here, I smile. Don't let them take that from me." Her words struck Daniel deeply, and for a moment he had no reply. He looked at her, really looked at her, not just as an alien girl, not just as someone folding his laundry, but as someone clinging to freedom with both hands. She smiled again, though her eyes were wet, and whispered, "I'll fold your laundry. Every day, every night, until you understand why this matters to me." Daniel opened his mouth to speak, but the sound of voices outside caught his attention. The guards were still nearby, talking to someone in the street, laughing about the human who can't pay rent and his alien servant. The laughter cut into him like a knife. He looked back at the girl, her hands still clutching the clean shirts, her face calm but her body tense. And in that moment, Daniel realized something. This wasn't just about rent anymore. This was about keeping her safe, keeping her smile. But how could he fight a system that didn't care? With no money, no power, and only 3 days left? The wind outside grew stronger, whistling through the broken walls. The girl placed the folded shirts neatly on the table, then stood beside him, her small hand resting gently on his arm. "We will find a way," she said, her voice certain, almost like a promise. Daniel looked at her and nodded slowly, but in his heart, fear grew. Because he knew when the guards returned, folding laundry would not be enough, and somewhere outside, in the shadows of the cold colony street, a pair of eyes watched their house, unseen, silent, waiting for the right moment. Morning light pushed weakly through the cracked window. But the room was still cold. Daniel sat at the small table, staring at his empty cup, no food, no money, no plan. The eviction notice lay flat in front of him, its words burning like fire in his head. 3 days left, that was all. The alien girl moved quietly around the room, folding the same clothes again, even though they were already clean. Her hand smoothed the fabric with care. As if each fold carried meaning, Daniel watched her, frustration building inside him. Finally, he spoke. Folding shirts won't pay rent. His voice was rough, almost bitter. The girl stopped, looked at him and smiled again, calm and gentle. You humans think rent is only credits, she said softly. But sometimes what a man loves most is not money. Daniel frowned, rubbing his forehead. What do you mean? You think they'll let us stay because you fold laundry? The girl tilted her head, silver hair brushing across her cheek. I mean you, Daniel, she whispered. What do you love most? The question froze him. He opened his mouth, but no words came. For so long he had lived only to survive. Work, pay, eat, sleep. Love had no place in his life. He shook his head. I don't know, he said at last. Right now, all I love is not freezing to death outside. The girl lowered her eyes, but didn't stop smiling. Then let me help you in the way I know, she said. Let me give you comfort. Let me take your burden. She lifted another shirt, folded it with perfect precision, and placed it gently on the stack. You may laugh at me, but folding these is more than work. It is my promise to you. I will not leave. Daniel leaned back in his chair, staring at her with mixed feelings, confusion, anger, but also a strange warmth. She was not asking for money, not begging for safety. She was offering herself in the only way she believed mattered. Not as a slave, not as a servant, but as someone who wanted to belong before he could answer. The door rattled with another knock. Daniel jumped to his feet, heart racing, but the girl placed a hand on his arm. Wait, she whispered, her eyes wide. Listen, the knock was softer this time. Not the heavy fists of the guards. Daniel opened the door carefully, and outside stood an old neighbor, Mrs. Cora, a wrinkled woman with sharp eyes. She glanced past Daniel, spotted the alien girl inside, and narrowed her gaze. They're talking about you at the market, she hissed. Saying you keep an alien who pays rent with other things. Daniel's face turned red, his jaw tight. That's not true, he said quickly. She just helps with the house. But Mrs. Cora only shook her head. Be careful, Daniel. Words spread fast, and not all ears are friendly. With that, she turned and left, her shadow stretching down the icy street. Daniel shut the door hard, his chest tight. He turned to the girl. Anger spilling out. Do you see? They already think you're... He stopped, not wanting to say the words. The girl's smile faded for the first time, her hands clutching the shirt she held. I know what they think, she whispered. They always think that. Silence filled the room, thick and heavy. Finally, she lifted her chin, her voice firm though soft. Let them think what they want. I know what I offer. And I know it is pure. Her words cut through Daniel's anger, leaving only quiet shame. He nodded slowly, not trusting his own voice. But outside, across the street, shadows moved. 2 figures watching from behind a broken wall. They whispered to each other, their eyes fixed on the alien girl. Is it her? One asked. Yes, the other replied. The lost one, the one who escaped. They melted back into the shadows, unseen by Daniel and the girl inside. That night, Daniel could not sleep. The cold pressed in, and his mind raced with fear. Fear of eviction, fear of guards, fear of the whispers in the market. Beside the small lamp, the girl kept folding again and again, even as her fingers trembled with exhaustion. Why do you keep doing this? He asked finally, his voice low in the dark. She looked at him, her silver eyes glowing faintly in the lamplight. Because when I fold, I feel safe, she whispered. When I fold, I belong to myself, not to them. Daniel's chest tightened, the weight of her words heavy on him. For the first time, he saw not just an alien girl trying to help, but a survivor fighting for dignity. He turned away, but her words echoed in his mind long after the lamp went out. And somewhere outside, in the frozen night, the 2 watchers moved closer, marking the house, waiting for the right time to strike. The next day, Daniel decided he had no choice but to go to the market. His food was almost gone, and if he didn't try to trade something, both he and the alien girl would starve before rent day. He pulled on his old coat, patched too many times, and stepped outside into the biting cold. The alien girl followed silently, holding a small cloth bag with only 2 items inside, a chipped cup and an old scarf. It was all they had left to barter. The colony market was alive with noise. Steam rising from food stalls, voices shouting prices, boots crunching on frozen ground. But as soon as Daniel and the girl entered, whispers began. Heads turned, eyes followed them, and the same cruel words floated through the air. That's the human who keeps an alien woman. They say she pays rent in other ways. Pathetic. Daniel kept his head down. Jaw tight, the alien girl walked beside him, her silver eyes calm. Though he noticed her hands gripping the bag tightly, she didn't flinch, didn't break, only kept walking as if she had faced this before. Many times at a stall selling stale bread. Daniel placed the chipped cup on the counter. "Will you take this?" he asked, his voice low. The merchant, a broad man with a heavy coat, looked at the cup, then at Daniel, then at the girl. His lip curled into a mocking smile. "For this? No, but maybe I'll take your alien instead," he sneered. Laughter spread among nearby merchants. Sharp and cruel, Daniel's fists clenched. His anger boiling. "She's not for sale," he snapped, his voice louder than he intended. The laughter grew, echoing through the cold market air. The alien girl touched his sleeve gently, whispering, "Ignore them, Daniel, please." Her voice was steady, but her eyes flickered with a shadow of pain. They moved on quickly, leaving the laughter behind. But Daniel could feel eyes burning into his back. Not just mocking eyes, but darker ones in the crowd. 2 cloaked figures followed at a distance, their movements quiet, their gaze fixed on the alien girl. One leaned closer to the other, whispering, "Yes, it's her." "No mistake this time." The other nodded. "We wait until nightfall, then take her back." Daniel didn't see them, but the girl felt it, an unease crawling up her spine. She glanced over her shoulder, her eyes narrowing, then quickly turned back. Her hand gripped Daniel's arm tighter than before. "What is it?" he asked, noticing the change in her. "Nothing," she said quickly, forcing a smile. "Just cold." But inside, fear had awakened old memories, dark rooms, chains, voices ordering her to fold again and again until her fingers bled. At the far end of the market, Daniel managed to trade the scarf for half a loaf of dry bread. It wasn't much, but it was something. As they turned to leave, an old merchant woman called out, her voice rough, "Boy!" A word. Daniel hesitated, then walked closer, the girl beside him. The woman's eyes were sharp, scanning the girl up and down. "You keep her with you," the woman said flatly. "Do you even know who she is?" Daniel frowned, confused. "She's just someone who needed shelter." The woman shook her head, leaning closer. "No, she's more than that. I've seen her face before. There's a price on her, and men in the shadows are searching." Daniel's stomach tightened, his chest heavy before he could ask more. The woman turned away, pulling her hood up. Disappearing into the crowd, her words hung in the cold air like smoke. "There's a price on her." The alien girl tugged his sleeve, her face pale. "Daniel, we must go," she whispered, her voice trembling. He nodded, but his mind was racing, questions hitting him one after another. Why was there a price on her? Who were these men? And what danger had he pulled into his own life? They left the market quickly, but Daniel could feel it. Eyes still watching, shadows still following. The loaf of bread felt heavy in his hands, not because of its weight, but because of what it had cost. Not just trade, not just humiliation, but attention, the kind that could destroy them. Back at the small house, Daniel shut the door fast and slid the lock in place. The alien girl dropped the empty cloth bag on the table, her hands trembling slightly. "Who are you really?" he asked finally, his voice sharp, his patience cracking. She looked at him, her silver eyes shining with fear, but also with something deeper, guilt. "I will tell you," she said softly, "but not tonight, not yet." "Please, Daniel, trust me a little longer." Daniel wanted to push, wanted answers, but the exhaustion in her voice stopped him. He sat down, breaking the dry bread in half. Handing her a piece, they ate in silence. The crack of the crust loud in the quiet room, but even as he chewed, Daniel's mind burned with worry. And outside, hidden in the freezing night, the 2 cloaked watchers waited. One of them smiled, showing sharp teeth in the dim light. "Tonight we mark the door," he whispered. Pulling a blade from his belt, the other nodded. "Tomorrow. She comes with us." Inside the house, the alien girl folded the scarf she had traded away earlier. Her hands trembling, she smiled at Daniel, but her eyes drifted to the door, because she already knew. The shadows would not wait forever. The night was colder than usual, the wind howling through the cracks of the metal walls. Daniel sat at the table, staring at the half loaf of bread left on the plate. He couldn't shake the feeling that the market eyes were still on them. That laughter, those whispers, and the old woman's warning circled in his mind like vultures. The alien girl sat on the floor, folding the same shirt again and again. Her silver hair spilled over her shoulders, glowing faintly in the dim lamp. Daniel watched her hands, quick, precise, perfect, as if folding was more than habit, it was survival. Finally he spoke, his voice sharper than he intended. "Why do you keep folding like this? Tell me the truth, who are you really?" The girl froze, her hand still clutching the shirt. Slowly she placed it down and lifted her eyes, those strange silver eyes shining in the weak light. For a long moment she said nothing, and Daniel thought she might refuse again. But then, in a voice trembling with memory, she began. "I was not born here," she whispered. "I came from the Chiron colonies, far beyond your stars." Her words made Daniel lean forward, his heart racing. "I was taken when I was young, not for who I was, but for what I could do." Her fingers brushed the folded fabric, her voice breaking slightly. "My people, we are trained to serve, to clean, to cook, to fold. It was supposed to be honorable, but for me it was chains." Daniel frowned, his stomach twisting. "Chains," she nodded slowly, her silver eyes filling with shadows of the past. "They locked me in a room, gave me piles of clothes, endless piles. I folded until my fingers bled. If I slowed down, they beat me. If I cried, they mocked me. I was their little machine, a folding slave." Her words cut deep into Daniel's chest, his anger boiling not at her, but at the unseen monsters in her past. She hugged her knees to her chest, rocking slightly, her smile gone. "That is why I fold now. Not because I must, but because when I do, I take back the power. I choose. Each fold is mine, not theirs." Silence stretched between them. Heavy and raw, Daniel's throat tightened, and for the first time, he felt the full weight of what she carried. This wasn't just some alien girl hiding in his home. This was someone who had crawled through torment and still managed to smile. He leaned closer, his voice softer now. "What's your name?" She hesitated, as if even her name was dangerous, then whispered, "Leora." Daniel repeated it under his breath. Leora. The name felt fragile, but strong too. Like a light in the cold before he could say more. A sharp knock rattled the door. Both of them froze. Daniel's blood ran cold. It wasn't the pounding fists of the guards, but a slow, deliberate knock 3 times. Leora's hands trembled, clutching the fabric, her lips whispering. "They found me." Daniel stood quickly. Grabbing the iron bar he kept near the door, he approached slowly, his heart beating so loud he could barely hear the wind outside. "Who is it?" he called, forcing strength into his voice. Silence. Only the wind answered. Then, a low laugh, soft but chilling, slipping through the cracks of the door. "Nice home you have here, human. Keep it warm, we'll come for what's ours." The footsteps faded, crunching into the snow, leaving silence behind. Daniel didn't open the door, he couldn't, he slid the lock tighter, his hands shaking when he turned back. Leora's face was pale, her eyes wide with terror. She whispered, "They marked the door." "Didn't they?" Daniel frowned, confused, but when he looked down, he saw it. Through the gap under the door, faint red powder had been sprinkled. A symbol drawn with shaking hands, glowing faintly in the dark. It was not human, it was alien. "What does it mean?" Daniel asked, his voice sharp with fear. Leora's hands tightened around the shirt until the fabric wrinkled. "It means they claim me," she whispered. "They will return, and this time they will not knock. They will break in." Daniel dropped the iron bar on the table and pressed both hands to his face. 3 days to pay rent, now strangers marking their home, his world was collapsing. But when he looked at Leora again, trembling yet refusing to break, his anger hardened into something else. Not fear, not defeat, but determination. "You're not theirs," he said firmly, stepping closer. "You're not a machine. You're not a servant, and you're not leaving with them. If they come back." "I'll fight." Leora's eyes widened, her lips parting as if to protest, but then her shoulders softened. For the first time since her story, she smiled again, a weak but true smile. "You would fight for me?" she whispered. Daniel nodded. "Yes. You fold my shirts like they matter. The least I can do is fight like you matter." Tears welled in her eyes, though she brushed them away quickly. "You don't know what they are capable of," she warned. Her voice shaking, Daniel leaned forward, gripping the iron bar again, his jaw set. Then they don't know what I am capable of either. The wind outside screamed louder, as if carrying a warning. The faint red symbol under the door glowed brighter, and in the distance, unseen, the cloaked watchers whispered to each other. Tomorrow night, one said, we take her back. No matter the humans fight inside. Leora sat again, folding the shirt slowly. Deliberately, not out of fear, not out of habit, but as if each fold was a weapon. Her voice was low but strong. If they come, I will not fold for them again. Snow fell heavy that evening, coating the colony streets in white silence. Daniel sat by the window, gripping the iron bar tightly, eyes scanning every shadow. He had not slept since the strange knock. The glowing symbol still burned in his mind. Leora sat quietly near the small lamp, folding the same shirt over and over, her face calm but her hands trembling. Leora, Daniel said suddenly, his voice firm, if they come, I want you to hide. Crawl under the bed, don't move until I tell you. Her silver eyes lifted slowly, shaking her head. No, she whispered. I will not hide. I spent too many years hiding. If they take me, I want to stand. Daniel clenched his jaw, anger and fear twisting inside him. You don't understand. They're stronger armed. I can't. Before he could finish, the sound of boots crunching snow filled the street outside. Then the sharp clang of fists against the door, harder this time, shaking the thin walls. Open up, human. A deep voice roared, we've come for what belongs to us. Daniel's heart hammered, but he didn't move to the door. Instead, he pressed a finger to his lips, signaling Leora to stay quiet. The knock came again, louder, then a crash, metal scraping as someone tried to force the lock. Daniel gripped the iron bar tighter, sweat running down his temple. The door burst open with a violent kick, the wood splintering. 2 cloaked mercenaries stormed inside, their eyes gleaming under hoods, weapons glowing with faint blue energy. One pointed at Leora. There! Grab her! Daniel stepped forward, raising the iron bar, his voice low but strong. She's not going anywhere. The mercenaries laughed, cruel and sharp. Step aside, human, before we break you in half, one sneered, lunging toward Leora. Daniel swung the iron bar with all his strength. Striking the man's arm, the mercenary cursed, dropping his weapon with a crackling spark. For a moment, shock filled the small room. Even Leora gasped. Daniel had no training, no armor, no plan, yet he stood tall, blocking the way with nothing but stubborn courage. The second mercenary growled, charging forward. Daniel swung again, the bar slamming into the man's shoulder. But this one was ready. He shoved Daniel back with brutal force, sending him crashing against the table. The lamp fell, spilling oil across the floor. Flames flickering dangerously, Leora screamed. But not in fear, her voice was sharp, commanding, Daniel, get up. Something in her tone gave him strength. He pushed to his feet, swinging wildly again, the iron bar colliding with the first mercenary's ribs. The man stumbled, cursing in pain. The second mercenary snarled, grabbing Daniel by the throat, lifting him off the ground. You think you can stop us? You're nothing but a weak human, he spat. Leora moved without thinking. She grabbed the fallen weapon, its handle glowing faintly. She aimed it at the mercenary holding Daniel, her hands shaking. Let him go, she said, her voice trembling but steady. The mercenary laughed. You wouldn't dare. The weapon crackled, a burst of blue light shooting out, grazing the man's shoulder. He screamed, dropping Daniel instantly. Stumbling back with smoke rising from his cloak, Daniel coughed, gasping for breath, then grabbed the iron bar again. He swung with desperate force, hitting the man square in the face, sending him crashing against the wall. The first mercenary, wounded but still standing, dragged his partner up. His eyes glared with fury. This isn't over. Tomorrow we return with more, and then no one will stop us. They staggered out into the snow, disappearing into the night. Daniel slammed the broken door shut, chest heaving, hands trembling from the fight. The fire on the floor sputtered out. Leaving only smoke in the air, he turned to Leora, who still held the glowing weapon in her hands. Her eyes were wide, her body shaking. You fought, she whispered, almost in disbelief. You fought for me. Daniel leaned on the iron bar, breathing hard. And you fought for me, he replied, his voice rough but proud. For a long moment, they stared at each other, the world outside silent but heavy with danger. Finally, Leora set the weapon on the table, her hands covering her face. They will return, she whispered, tears slipping between her fingers. They will return with more, and this time, they will not leave without me. Daniel stepped closer, gently pulling her hands down. His voice was low, steady, but burning with determination. Then let them come. We'll be ready. But even as he said the words, his mind raced with fear because deep inside, he knew the mercenaries spoke the truth. They would come back, and next time the fight might not end in his favor. Outside, snow kept falling, covering the red symbol at the door, but the mark still glowed faintly beneath the white. A silent reminder tomorrow the real storm would arrive. Morning came with pale light and bitter cold. Daniel worked for hours fixing the broken door, nailing old wood across the frame. But no matter how hard he tried, it still looked weak. Every hammer strike echoed in the silent street. A warning to anyone listening, this house had been attacked. Inside, Leora sat near the table, her silver hair tangled, her hands busy folding the same shirt again. But this time her fingers shook, every crease uneven, every fold messy. Her mind was not in the cloth, but in the memory of the night before. The mercenaries' faces, their threats, the fire. Daniel almost strangled, she whispered softly. They will come back, Daniel. You cannot face them alone. Daniel wiped sweat from his forehead, his jaw tight. Then I'll get help, he said firmly. The council will listen. They have to. He grabbed his coat and looked at her. Stay inside. Lock the door. Don't open it for anyone but me. Leora nodded weakly, but as the door closed behind him, her chest ached with dread. She had seen councils before. They rarely helped the weak. The colony council chamber was crowded, cold and filled with smoke from burning oil lamps. At the front sat 5 officials, their coats thick and their expressions heavier. Daniel stood before them, exhausted but burning with anger. They broke into my house, he said, voice steady but sharp. 2 mercenaries came for her. They threatened me, threatened her, and they promised to return with more. I need protection. We need protection. The council members exchanged looks, some smirking, some sighing as if this was a waste of time. Finally, one leaned forward, a tall man with deep wrinkles. Protection costs resources, soldiers' weapons. Why should we risk our men for an alien girl? Daniel's fists clenched. Because she's not just an alien girl. She lives here now. She's part of this colony. Laughter rippled through the chamber, sharp and mocking. Part of the colony? She's a burden, Daniel. You can't even pay your rent, and now you expect us to fight mercenaries for your pet? The word cut through Daniel like a blade. He slammed his hand on the wooden table, startling the guards nearby. She's not a pet, he roared, his voice echoing. She is a person, and she is under my roof. If you won't protect her, then tell me, what kind of leaders are you? The council grew silent for a moment, surprised by his outburst. But then the tall man smirked again, leaning back. A foolish one, that's what you are. You've tied yourself to her, and now her enemies are yours. Don't expect the colony to bleed for your mistake. Daniel's chest heaved, rage flooding every vein. You'll regret this, he spat, his voice trembling not with fear but with fury. If you won't stand with us, then we'll stand alone. And when those mercenaries tear down my door, remember this day, you chose to do nothing. Without waiting for a reply, Daniel stormed out, the council's laughter following him into the icy streets. Back at the house, Leora sat by the broken window, staring at the snow drifting down. Her folded shirt lay forgotten on the table, her silver eyes filled with worry. When Daniel returned, his face was pale with anger, his fists raw from gripping too hard. She stood quickly, searching his eyes. What did they say? Daniel dropped his coat, his voice bitter. They said you're not worth it, that you're just an alien. They laughed at me, at us. He looked at her, his jaw tight. We're on our own. Leora. Her shoulders sank, but instead of crying, she smiled faintly, almost sadly. I told you. Councils never fight for people like me. She stepped closer, her voice soft but certain. Then don't fight for me, Daniel. Let them take me. Save yourself. Daniel stared at her, disbelief in his eyes. You think I'd hand you over? After everything? He stepped closer, his voice shaking but fierce. No. Listen to me, Leora. You are not just some stranger hiding in my home. You are not rent, you are not chains, you are not theirs, you are family. The word slipped from his lips before he even realized. Leora froze, her silver eyes wide, her hands trembling at her sides. Family, she whispered, almost afraid to believe it. Daniel nodded, his voice rough but strong. Yes, my family. and I'll fight for my family. Her eyes filled with tears, shining in the weak light. For so long she had been treated as an object, a servant, a burden, but here, in this broken little home, a human had called her family. She pressed a hand to her mouth, trying to stop the sob that broke free. Daniel, no one has ever said that to me before. He reached out, placing a hand gently on her shoulder. Well, now someone has, and I mean it. You belong here, with me. For a long moment, silence filled the room, but it was not heavy like before. It was warm, fragile, a spark of something new. Leora nodded slowly, her smile small but real. Then if I'm family, I will fight too. Daniel's lips curved into a faint smile, though his eyes were still hard with worry. Then we fight together, he said, his voice steady. But we'll need more than courage. We'll need a plan. Outside, the snowstorm grew stronger, the wind howling like wolves in the night, and far away in the shadows beyond the colony, the mercenaries sharpened their weapons. Their leader grinned, his voice low and cruel. Tomorrow the human house falls, and the girl comes with us. Inside, Leora folded one last shirt, placed it gently on the table, and whispered, Tomorrow we show them what family means. The night was silent. Too silent, snow fell thick over the colony, covering streets and houses like a white shroud. Daniel stood by the broken door, gripping the iron bar in one hand and the glowing stolen weapon in the other. Beside him, Leora folded the last shirt and placed it neatly on the table, her silver eyes calm but fierce. They will come, she whispered, her voice steady. Tonight they will come for me. Daniel nodded, his jaw tight. Then tonight they'll learn I don't give up family. The hours crawled by, every creak in the walls making Daniel tense. Then finally heavy boots crunched outside. Shadows moved through the snow. Voices growled low and cruel. Break the door. Take the girl. Kill the man if you must. The door shuddered under a heavy kick. Wood splintering, nails bending. Daniel raised the weapon, his heart pounding. The door burst open, and 5 mercenaries stormed in, their cloaks whipping in the icy wind, weapons glowing with blue energy. There she is, one shouted, pointing at Leora. Daniel stepped in front of her, the iron bar raised, his voice like steel. You'll have to go through me first. The mercenaries laughed, cruel and confident, but then the first one lunged, swinging his weapon toward Daniel's head. Daniel ducked, slamming the iron bar into the man's knee, sending him crashing to the ground with a cry of pain. The fight had begun. Leora grabbed the glowing weapon from the table, her hands shaking but her aim steady. She fired a burst of light, striking another mercenary's chest, throwing him back against the wall with a scream. Her breath came fast, but her eyes burned with fire. No more chains, she shouted. No more folding for you. The mercenaries roared, rushing forward together. Daniel fought with wild strength, every swing of the iron bar fueled by rage and desperation. One mercenary slashed his arm, blood dripping down, but he gritted his teeth and struck back harder. The weapon cracked skull against wall, sparks flying as metal hit metal. 2 mercenaries cornered Leora. Their blades raised, she backed against the table, fear flashing across her face, but then she saw the folded shirts neatly stacked beside her. Her hands clenched, her voice sharp. I fold for myself now. She swung the glowing weapon in a wide arc, blasting both men with a surge of light that shook the room. Daniel turned just in time to see her standing tall, the silver glow in her eyes brighter than ever. For a moment, even he forgot his pain, staring in awe. But the fight wasn't over. The leader of the mercenaries stepped forward, larger than the rest, his weapon glowing twice as bright. You think you can stop me, human? He growled. Daniel raised the iron bar, blood dripping from his arm, his chest heaving. I don't think, he said, his voice fierce. I know, the leader charged, swinging with brutal strength. Daniel blocked with the bar, sparks flying, his arms shaking from the impact. They clashed again and again, metal against metal, until finally Daniel drove the bar straight into the leader's chest. The man staggered, eyes wide with shock. Before crashing to the floor, silence followed, broken only by the crackle of the dying flames and the sound of heavy breathing. The surviving mercenaries dragged their wounded leader up, their eyes filled with fear now. This isn't over, one hissed. But his voice shook. Then they fled into the night, disappearing into the snow, leaving only their mark of failure behind. Daniel dropped the iron bar, his body trembling. His breath ragged, he turned to Leora, who still held the glowing weapon, her silver hair falling over her face. Her hands shook, but her eyes were steady. You fought, she whispered, her voice soft but full of pride. You fought for me like I was yours. Daniel smiled faintly. Weak but true. You are mine, he said, not as property. As family. Tears welled in Leora's eyes, spilling down her cheeks for the first time in her life. She was not someone's servant, not someone's prisoner. She was home outside. Neighbors gathered in the street. Drawn by the noise, they stared at the broken door. The blood, the scorch marks, and at Daniel, standing tall beside the alien girl. Whispers spread quickly, but this time they were different. That human fought mercenaries for her. He protected her like his own. Maybe she's not a burden after all. Leora heard the whispers but ignored them. Her eyes stayed on Daniel, her smile soft and full of something new. Hope. She picked up the last folded shirt and placed it gently in his hands. Our home is safe, she said, her voice certain. Daniel nodded, gripping the fabric tightly. For now, he said. But there was no fear in his voice, only strength. The storm outside began to fade. The wind softening, and in the little broken house, warmed by firelight and courage, two souls who had been strangers the week before now stood as something far stronger. Not just human and alien, not just survivor and protector, but family.